Did you guys all get the thing saying it's recording?
Yes.
Great. All right. So everyone can see the
Yes.
slide here, and I can see the chat now. All right. Okay. All right. So I made a little agenda for today. I'm hoping we can get this done in an hour. So I wanted to do an intro to community engagement, my list of 10 potential needs and tasks. I want to be able to schedule the next meeting, give just my email for how to follow up and make commitments, which I'm hoping. I know there's a lot of people interested, but I hope that some of you will be able to say, you can actually take on some of these tasks. And if there's time, we'll go around and introduce everybody who's here. But I want to leave that to the end because sometimes that, I know people are interesting and have a lot of things that they like to talk about because they've done a lot. So, way of introduction. I think you all know me. I'm Kathy Regan. I've been in the guild for about 30 years now. I've held lots of positions. So I've been evening chair, I've been president, I've been sale chair, and I used to do outreach. But now I'm retired, and so I have a lot more time that I can really commit to making this happen. And my background is as a scientist, which I did for several years, and then I switched over to informal science education. So I spent 20 years at the CU Museum working to connect scientists with the community and really thinking about ways that we can engage people to meet them where they are and get them excited about new topics that they might never have heard of or never would have thought they were interested in unless they had participated in something. And then HGB has been doing outreach forever. I know Sue Hines-Seacrest ran it for 6 years. Is that what it said in your packet, Sue?
Right.
Angela has been doing it for a while, and I think, most of us here have participated in some kind of outreach event. But much of that information might be in boxes and storage, but a lot of it has been kind of lost to the future. So the Guild has, I think, done a really great job recently of setting up Google Drives and a lot of shared online platforms. So we'll be able to track what we do moving forward and really have something that we can build on as we go. We all know that our Guild is aging, and we'd really like to bring some younger people in. So community engagement is a good way to do that, and just to keep our crafts alive. So 10 tasks. And I cannot see in this screen view that I've got up now, I can't see any comments. So since there's not a ton of people here, please just speak up if you want to contribute something. You can write it in the comments, and then I'll be able to look at it later. I'll take a picture and record comments. So I think the first thing we need to do is to define our audience. Who are we going to be engaging in the community, and what are their needs? And so I kind of just took a quick stab at dividing people up by age and thinking about what we might be focusing on to reach those audience. So for children, I think it's mainly awareness that these sorts of things exist and generating enthusiasm. Teens, skill building is something that I think will really pull people in. 20s and 30s, people have just, they're moving out of the house, they're ending school, they're on their own for the first time. And one of the things I think we learned at the university is that they really don't know how to connect with their broader community. And so both teaching skills and giving them sense of belonging and connections to a community is an important part of that time of life. Mid-years, again, going back to awareness that the guild exists, that these things that they might have done as kids and put away for a long time are still out here. So I think the lifelong learning urge becomes something that's a driver then. And seniors, I put this as infotainment. So ways to engage people that gives them information and is also entertaining. So does anybody have any thoughts on that list or any kinds of things to add? I mean, again, nothing we're doing here is a final version. This is all kind of a tossing things out and getting things started sort of thing. All right, I do see.
I don't understand what you mean by infotainment for seniors. And
so
also people in their 20s and 30s, they're starting to have kids and they don't have any time.
Right. And so, but not everybody has kids. There's plenty of people out there who are still single. And I think that, you know, the ages that people are having kids is getting pushed back later and later. So by infotainment, I mean, it's entertainment. So we're going to give people something, you know, if they're living in a senior center to bring something into them that is entertaining, but not something that you just walk away feeling good about, but something that you have gained some more information, something that you've maybe decided you want to follow up on, something just a step above entertainment.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know why this is not advancing my slides from these. Is this big enough for everybody to see if I leave it at this size? Okay.
Yes.
Because then I can.
Yep.
So number 2 tasks is to identify events, groups, and venues for community engagement activities. And Jane, I think, is this, if we want to do some programs with community events. Okay, so we'll. Okay. So in the past, we've done programs at the Boulder County Fair, where we've actually been there for a whole week, which was a huge commitment. The Estes Park Wool Market are events that are already have some sort of fiber focus. K-12 schools we've done in the past going into classrooms. The NoBo Art District is something new to consider. They do first Friday night events every month and second Saturdays, so we could have a presence there. Senior centers, FiberFest was an event that the Guild put on before the pandemic at the library, and I know Jane Patrick is very interested in working to make that happen again. The library has said, given the current situation around their space with homeless people, they don't feel that the library is an appropriate place to actually host that. Libraries in general are places we can meet people in the community. We've worked with the CSU Extension, both with the 4-H and then From the Lands to Our Hands is a program that I know Sue worked with a lot. And so I think this could be a task for somebody to take on to really generate a good list, to reach out to people. We participated in STEAM Fest, which is science. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math, which used to happen out at the county fairgrounds and now has been at the Junkyard Social Club. And I had reached out to them, and Junkyard Social Club said, sure, anytime you guys want to come and do something. So I think one of my main takeaways from this is to be more proactive and to not just wait for a school or a 4-H group, or I see Jane just put scout troops, reach out to us and say we'd like something, but for us to actually be reaching out and offering to the community.
Yeah, I think that would be really, really great if we could reach out a little bit more. I think the Boulder County Fairgrounds, when we used to do that, I think that brought in a lot of people that, you know, more of the agricultural community, you know, that would come by. So
Yeah.
I thought that was always really helpful.
Okay,
But you were talking about from our lands to our hands, or our lands to hands. Anyway, I thought that was always a really good thing to be in coordination with the 4-H. I
yeah,
think the pandemic did really affect everything, you know?
it absolutely did. And, when I first took on the outreach at HGB email, there were 2 years of unanswered emails where the county fair had reached out to us, and the 4-H, the program we did over the summer was a 4-H program, Viva La Cabra, which was Long Live Goats.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, there were so many, there was a couple years there that I really wanted to do outreach, but I really felt like I could not commit fully.
I know. And I think, it's more than a one person
Exactly.
position. So that's what I'm hoping you guys will all try to.
Collaboration.
So to really
I had a question.
Yep.
I had a question. You said something about FiberFest, and I'm not sure if I was just reading too much into it. Is the library thinking of having it in a different location, sponsoring it?
No.
Okay.
So the library
all.
has, I think everything is going to be different with the new library district. And I think over, again, pandemic related positions at the library changed, and they really changed the way they're doing their programming. And so I think, I'm not sure if it was through Shact or through HGB that, Jane Patrick was the real driver of that FiberFest. And so I think we've still got the people power and the energy. We just don't have the library, which means we lose a connection with the city to provide tents and tables and some of that stuff. So, none of this is stuff that I think we can expect to happen next week. I think, if we do FiberFest, it would probably be something that we wouldn't do for at least 6 months. We'd spend some time getting that to where it needs to be. So I think beyond just reaching out to people and offering, we'd really like this to be a collaboration, which means it's a two-way interactive thing. And so, we're collaborating other as presenters, as attendees, as funding partners. And so we really want to build and maintain some relationships, which again takes time and happens on a more personal level. So, Shack Spindle Company is obviously, they are a huge collaborator, already collaborating with them. There's different departments at CU. I've gotten some emails from people who have connections in Atlas with their some of the new programs they've got that have more fiber orientations. And so again, somebody who can spend some time reaching out to people. Communications is a critical piece of everything. So again, we need to figure out, once we've identified all of these people to engage with, how do we actually let them know? How do we inform guild members of the opportunities? Somebody has to schedule engagement activities. And I think it's important, and I'll figure out how we can have whoever is doing this using an HGB email, because then we actually have a record of who's doing it. So, when somebody leaves a position, they don't take their email and everything with them. So communications would be an ongoing, forever kind of thing that has to be done. Design and create printed materials for presentations. So as Angela found out when she went to get the stuff for the sale demos, most of the things we had created in the past were either kind of shredded or were on heavy pieces of wood and were moved out of the storage area. So somebody who likes to do graphics to really decide what is it that we need to take out with us. So if we want to define fiber techniques, identify fibers, I think there's a lot of directions this can go. We need to determine the best format for that, so it's easy to use and so that we can store it without taking up a lot of room. And do we want to have anything online that people can just look up instead of always having us have to go out in person to do something? Number 6 is we have a lot of equipment. So we have looms, we have a spinning wheel, we have There's floor looms, there's table looms, there's tapestry looms, there's a box full of sponges and needle felting needles. We have a lot of yarn, we have fiber. And it's all in the storage locker out on Valmont. So I don't know how long ago the looms were warped. I was noticing at the sale, there's a lot of hanging threads and things. And so we might want to start fresh with some of those, but even if we don't start fresh, we're going to need to keep them in good shape and prepped to go. Identifying any new equipment and supplies we need. So I had requested a $500 budget this year. So whoever asked about how do we pay for things, we do have some budget. And then to think about the logistics of equipment access and transportation of how people are going to get things where it needs to go.
Is that budget just for equipment, or is it also for some of the materials you asked for?
It was just for outreach. It was a blanket,
everything. Okay.
anything and everything. Okay. So far, all we bought are some lights for the storage locker.
Good one though.
The website, again, so coordinating with the Guild's webmaster to determine how best to use that as a communication tool. One of the things we did at the museum over the pandemic was created downloadable activities on the website. So, could we maybe have little one-page things that say, make a cardboard loom and weave something at home. Again, these are all long timeline things. We're not going to do them all right away. We need somebody to follow up and track what we've done. So recording just basic, who, what, when, where, how many people were reached, what guild members were involved. Take some pictures. And we've definitely done that in the past, but I'm not sure if we've ever done any evaluation or assessment of success. And so are our community participants satisfied, and are the guild presenters satisfied? So we might do something that the community absolutely loves, but it was such, a burden on the presenters to get it together and transport and everything. And so thinking about what are our measures of success from both sides, and then figuring out how to keep this information live and accessible to people. Number 9 is potentially finding more funding to do this. So if we want to put on some big things, are there some big projects we'd like to take on? We need to identify goals from the HGB side and what are the community needs, what are appropriate funding sources, who would we partner with? And so grant writing is its own skill set. And again, not something we're going to do tomorrow, but something we should be thinking about. We are eligible for SCFD funding, the Scientific and Cultural Funding District. We are part of Colorado Gives Day. But I think until we really put some thought and effort into what do we want to ask, what are we going to use money for, it makes it hard to ask for money. So lots of people are asking for people's
Kathy?
Yep.
I just want to mention that HGB member Linda Olson is a professional grant writer who has offered her services to me when I started as president. And she's also a former Art Parts board member and a former EcoCycle board member. So she'll be a good resource for in the future for grant writing.
Yeah,
and she's ready and able to help.
That sounds great.
And Kathy, do we or can we get a list of things other groups are doing? Like Shack does some stuff at schools, I think, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure what else is out there, but I'm not sure how we'd go about doing that, but it would be kind of nice to know. And
yeah, no, that's a
coordinate.
great idea. I've been trying to meet with Jane for a while. She's had COVID and then she had a rebound, so she's been out of commission for
She's here with us.
Did you come on, Jane? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you down there.
I'm
So-
here. I'm
Okay.
coming back. I'm
Good.
kind of coming back. Yeah.
Good. I hope you're feeling, I heard you were tired. That goes away.
Right. I'm getting there. Thanks.
All right. But yes, Jane, so that's something we could add as task number 11 is to explore what other people are doing. I know there was a countywide effort going on to identify every environmental oriented presentation given at schools to what grade level. It's not quite the same thing, but I think we can, we have some overlap with that sort of thing. I guess one thing I forgot to say back with the equipment and supplies is that, let me go back to that one. I wrote myself a little note here that we need to be using the highest quality materials we can afford because we want people to be handling things that feel good. And this is something the Denver Art Museum does incredibly well. They always use real art materials and real things. And we need to be sustainable wherever we can. So reusing stuff is great and using donations, but if it's donations of, old acrylic yarn that's just not very nice,
Right.
then we don't have to just take it because somebody gave it to us. But so the sustainability piece was something I wanted to bring up. All right. And then the very last task is, I think, what everybody always wants to do, which is actually implementing community activity. And so people who step up and love to do this, and a lot of people, are naturals at getting out and presenting things, but not everybody is. So what resources do members need to be comfortable and successful in doing outreach? Do we need any training or scripts or guidelines? I mean, I think at a bare minimum, we want to at least have, a couple sentences that people would say about the guild and let people know where they're coming from and who we are. We might be able to just do this with online resources to give people links or maybe to buy some additional materials for the HDB library. There's a lot of stuff out there on best practices and engaging with the public and working with diverse audience. Is somebody saying something? Okay. So those are my 10 things. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Somebody's got background speaking going on. So what are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you want to do?
Well, I think one thing that the Rocky Mountain Readers Guild does really well that I think we could take from is they have certain activities they do every year in outreach. And if we decided what those things were, where that need was, we could just have that as ongoing activities. Then we don't have to think up every year, what are we going to do? So I think the guild sale demos are really good. I think we'd have to evaluate the value of going to the county fair and what is the attendance versus how much time is spent doing that. Are there other things like going to the farmer's market every year or doing things like that that could be just ongoing outreach?
Makes a lot of sense.
Those things are really valuable too, because Rocky Mountain gets a lot of membership from those events.
Yeah, and I know the farmer's market, you can sign up for a community table. They have a small fee.
I'm sorry, Kathy, I can't hear you with
Yeah,
someone's
Jane, is
background.
it your workers that are talking behind you?
No,
Jane's
I'm
muted.
alone.
Yeah, okay. So the farmer's market will let you have a community table. You need to have some kind of connection to those sorts of things that the farmer's market does, but we can easily make those connections. There's several stands that sell yarn. And then we can have a table at the Saturday market, Saturday morning, Wednesday evening, and the Longmont markets. And those we did those at the museum a lot, and they're a ton of fun, and you get a lot of people stopping, all ages.
There were a couple things that am I on? Okay. There were a couple things that we used to do, I think annually, and I don't know if there's something that you would want to add to your list. One of them was there were several historical, like vintage events that would go on that we would be invited to come and show weaving and spinning. One of them was Historic Boulder, when they do their holiday home tours. They would have us sitting in the homes weaving and spinning, and we'd get a lot of people stopping and asking us about it during that. And they're still doing that annually over the holidays. It's kind of a hard time because it is the holidays, but it's only one weekend.
Right, and this year they're doing it in ADUs in small places, so
Right.
it's been hard to do that. But yeah, I saw that in your notes too.
And that was fun. We always had a good time doing that. And then the other one was the Scandinavian Festival up in Estes Park, which takes place during the summer. And that was another one that we would do each year, and we'd have a booth and be set up showing weaving and spinning and so forth. And that one was always fun and popular. There was also one at CU that we were invited to do a couple times that was like a back to the past and how things were done in the past. So you could dress in vintage clothing and sit there and do your weaving and spinning.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are good things, but I think we also, we want to kind of get out of the mindset that a lot of people have that this is something from the past. I mean, it's absolutely worth
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
connections, but we
Yeah,
want to
I wouldn't wear vintage clothing.
be
That just says-
forward looking too.
Yeah.
And
It's
toward
still-
that end,
Yeah. Okay. Margaret, what?
a comment. I mean,
We can hear you, Margaret.
okay. Yesterday I went to the Ply Spinners Guild, and about 100 and some odd people arrived for that. And I heard some new terms, and this kind of relates to what we're talking about. One of them was decolonizing fiber arts, i.e., taking it into more diverse communities.
Right.
And bringing people in that way. And they had some fairly good ideas. One of them, they had taken a project into a city park where they gathered nettles, of all things. I questioned that. And then wove that on a giant rigid heddle loom. And they happened to take this to a very diverse neighborhood. So they had a lot of kids of a lot of browns and blacks. And, there was a diverse group, and reaching out to them in a way that was inviting to our otherwise, pretty staid old white women kind of venues. And I thought this was kind of an interesting idea, that we need to reach out to people of all backgrounds to incorporate their crafts as well.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
so kind of the idea of taking this into farmers markets, or even maybe small craft shows that are in those underserved communities, to set up there and invite a dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think that's something we really need to be doing. It's a little throwaway in there to do the diverse audiences, but one thing we did at the museum during the pandemic is we did pop-ups in city parks. And it was pretty easy to get permission from the city to do that, where we just set up a little tent, and we chose parks again that were in neighborhoods with more diverse populations. And we would spend a couple hours in the park. We'd post things in the neighborhood, the week before we went, and people would just come by. And so you can't it's hard to do things on open space, but it's easier to do things in those manicured parks. But that, I think that's a great idea. There's several different city housing groups around Boulder that have community centers that we could go into and engage with people there.
I have a question. I'm not sure if it falls within the purview of community engagement, but Handweavers Guild of America has a traveling show called Small Expressions. Sue was interested and so was I. It seems like it's kind of difficult. Would that fall within our purview, you think? It's small pieces that members have
So
done.
we'd be
Sue
finding
probably can say it better than I can what it's
we'd be
about.
finding a venue to show that.
Yeah, you would
Yeah.
need to do that, and it's not easy because a lot of
Yeah.
the venues, I looked into it at one time, and there's certain procedures that you have to follow for getting these things shipped and then sending them back. But it's what I ran up against was the venues in Boulder are so booked out, and you have to schedule it with the Handweavers Guild of America, and it's really hard to coordinate the two. But again, if somebody really wanted to put the time into that, you could. I, of course, went to the Dairy Center because I thought that would be a great place to have it. And they were very booked out. But
Yeah, and I think people generally have a 2 to 3 year
right.
Yeah.
window, and a lot of our smaller, more nimble things want to show locally created things, like the library. I think mostly does local. Go ahead, Jane. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I think way back, and that's the Small Expression Show is such a great show. And many years ago, I believe it was at the Longmont Museum, and they actually do quite a bit of textile showing there. I think that would be they would be receptive, I think, to that.
I wasn't so much asking at this point about how to do it. Do we think that's something that it fits within this group as something we should try to make happen?
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
is that
I see
outside
the overlap, but I'm not 100% sure. I think the other kinds of things might
Okay,
be a
it
higher
needs
priority.
discussion,
And
that's all.
if we
And this
can get
isn't the time.
if we can get those things going, then absolutely. Or like you said, if somebody wants to take that on and work with HGA to coordinate it.
But the other part of doing something like that, you can build a whole program that can create a lot of energy. You have the show, especially the Longmont Museum likes education. You can have education around that. You could have other kinds of lectures and things. So you could create a whole program.
Right. So that'd be a great example of a collaboration then, right? We would collaborate with something like the Longmont Museum to bring in.
I'm thinking maybe rather than trying to present a national show, to do a show from works from the guild, to show the variety that if we're trying to encourage people to join us, that it doesn't have to be the fanciest things from all over the country, because that might be intimidating to people. Show, have a show of, more, we want to show our good things, but, it wouldn't necessarily have to be, I think to show the variety of kinds of things that we do. And then maybe, I've been to the Longmont Museum a number of times in their shows. I don't remember seeing Small Expressions there. That would have been interesting. And then, maybe have, demonstrations then maybe, on the Saturdays during the run of the show. So people could come ask questions.
Yeah, so Joanne, I think that's a great idea of an example that we could request funding for. And so we could say we want to create a show that is going to engage and inform the community. And then, the library, the Boulder Library or Longmont could be a good venue for that. The library just did a show over the summer on small creatures that they did with the city, where there were, so there was an art show. Denise had a piece in that. And then I led a workshop And there were probably a dozen workshops associated with that show. And so it was a really nice package of things. And then there was a lecture at the beginning. They had an invited speaker who was both in person and online. So I think that's a great kind of package to request funding for. Denise and then BA.
One thing I'd love to see us explore that the city is always looking for ideas for is public art installations. And in our case, it would be something that was hands-on, that all ages could participate in creating. An example I'm going to throw out there that I've actually been chewing on was, so CDs aren't recyclable. And to me, they're just giant sequins. And I've seen some spectacular public art installations made out of old CDs, which I have now collected hundreds of. And a community public installation like that in a city space. I will tell you about a community in Wisconsin that strung together CDs and then floated them on a lake in the middle of their town. And because of the rainbow and refractive qualities of CDs, it drew hundreds of people. It was very popular. It was beautiful. It was temporary. And the whole community helped sew together the sequins. So beyond yarn bombing, because been there, done that, I'd love to explore the idea of a giant public art installation made by the community. Just throwing that out.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
Because it's so visible, you know.
Mm-hmm. So what I want to say, and I understand what Joanne was saying about, well, rather than, you know, people could be intimidated by showing a national show, but I think the whole point is you're trying to form a committee, a group of people, so that we all don't do one thing, that we can fracture off into diverse areas, because there are people that are going to say, I'm not going to go to one of our shows. It's all crafty stuff. I don't do that crap. I want something higher scale. I think we need to answer to all different people in the community. I mean, everything I just said, I don't agree with, that it's all handmade crap. But I mean, there are people that feel that way. And I think we need to, and the idea of having a committee is that, yes, we can meet different needs and wants in the community. So, and Denise's idea, you know, is just great. You know, it's just that I think that's the whole point. And the reason I asked about the small expressions is that within what we want to be doing. And that was the question, not how or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, just sitting here, there's been a number of really nice ideas. And I think we should work on organize ourselves so that we can meet all those needs. Maybe that's a lot of them. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, is it's not like, oh, we should do this. I don't think we should have a single view. We need to spread meet a lot of needs.
Right. So what I'm kind of hearing from most people is the idea that we could create some events or content that we would do on a regular basis, and more emphasis on that than on doing individual, like, response to a school or just those smaller kind of one-on-one things. Does that seem to be the?
Yes.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
think that's, you know, things with high visibility in the community are, you know, it's many of our goals. Like, I would really like to see FiberFest become an annual thing. You were talking about, you know, something that we anticipate each year. I was working at Art Parts when FiberFest was going on, and I can't tell you how many people came into the shop and said, I'm coming from FiberFest. I'm here to buy yarn. I was so inspired. It was so fun. I had such a good time. My daughter's here, get some crochet hooks. And I would love to see us revive that, because it had such huge community impact. And that's what we're aiming for.
I agree with all the big things and the community events, and they're really exciting. But I don't want to give up the classrooms and the scout meetings and the intimate things. I love doing that, and whether it's the biggest bang for our buck. So maybe we don't want to emphasize it, but I'd hate to give it up altogether.
Agree.
Mhm. I agree too. Mhm.
And I'm not so sure that you'd be giving it up. I don't remember what it was called. I was really disappointed not to be able to participate in FiberFest both times I was out of town. But the library had some kind of activity. And then we just sat and knit, spin, whatever, and had materials there. And I mean, we had this family come by. They were there for hours because they were just so excited and interested. That was way more interesting than doing it to a classroom of 25, 30 kids who are like, well, okay, we have to do it and stuff. I mean, we had parents whining because they wanted to leave and their kid didn't want to. It was great. And I think when you say big does not necessarily mean not intimate. It depends on how you set it up.
Exactly.
And I know we did on Weaving and Spinning Day one year, we did in the paleontology hall at the museum, knitting isn't just for dinosaurs or something like that, and
Cute.
have people set up. And, so yes, I think there are ways to do that. Jane, were you gonna say something?
Oh, leave soon. Oh, the other Jane, sorry.
Oh, I don't know.
But, okay.
Sorry.
Kathy, just one thing to tuck back there is so I'm chair of programs, and we are looking at someone coming in next year who I talked to Kathy about, could we have her do a community event? She makes that courting and it's all very, bring things you love. And we haven't decided if we're going to do it, but the question came is, do we want to have any of our monthly programs and workshops, those teachers also do a community event with us? If so, is that an appropriate use of our funds? Do we charge for it? So just something to think about, because I have to leave. I still have 10 minutes, but because I know we're bringing in a Native American knitwear designer next year. That's probably more guild focused, but just thinking out loud.
And again, I think those are things that we could also grant write and fundraise for. I mean, I think it's a great sustainability thing if we're using the resources to transport somebody here, to have them have a bigger reach than just the guild, but how to think about doing that so that guild members are still getting, the value from their membership, but could we reach a specific targeted community that's underserved or underrepresented, and figure out a way, if that speaker is interested in doing that, to have an additional program that the guild could fund through other funding revenues sources.
Kathy knows about this idea. I think I'm gonna apply to be an artist in residence at Caribou Ranch. It's a 4-day thing. You take your looms and your wheels and you go live there. And if we do it, I'd love to do some outreach with that of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, I think if everybody is thinking about the things they're doing, right, and what are the outreach components to them, how we can piggyback on things that people are already doing. And so I think part of it is this, logistical platforms, right? How do we set something up to track that? How can people easily get the information of who they've reached and how they've reached them and what photos they've had, so that we're building a body of work that we've done and that we can continue to do elsewhere. So somebody else, if you figure something out as an artist in residence, somebody else might be able to take that and apply it to what they're doing.
Kathy and I are going to have a conversation at some point about reviving FiberFest, because I agree that was just a super event. And we partnered with the library on that, and they were a really good partner. Building 61, a lot of things have changed at the library, so we'd have to see if they would want to be a partner again or if they have the capabilities. But that was a really good resource for volunteers. It was so fun. Their library volunteers, a lot of them didn't know anything about textiles, and yet they were volunteering. It was so fun. And we got good resources. We didn't have to pay to be on the city lawn. The city doesn't want to do anything on the library lawn anymore because of the homeless situation. So we can't, they're not really wanting to do a venue there. So we'll have to explore that.
How about the Longmont Museum doing the FiberFest in coordination with the Longmont Museum?
I don't really want to take it out of Boulder, frankly.
I agree.
Yeah, so this might be something about, looking at the NoBo Art District and seeing if there's a
Yeah.
place up there, because
That's our best.
they
big
have some of the, they've got,
new-
yeah, parking.
Has the library said no to their branches? The Reynolds Library near me has a
We-
big
never
lawn.
The thing about downtown is there's so many people if you do it because we got a lot of people coming from the farmers market that, so maybe we do it in conjunction with the farmers market kind of thing.
The farmers market's really hard to work with on anything. I mean, for the, the Bee Boulder Festival with all the pollination things, that's always also been through the library and the city as the connection and not the farmers market.
But the
We
Boulder,
can work with them, try.
but the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art used
Right.
to allow art parts to do an art stop right in front of their venue during the farmers market, and that brought a lot of kids sitting down for hours and making various things that I believe CU was a coordinator for. Actually, oh no, it was the museum's outreach that helped
Yeah, it
us
was
set up
BMOCA.
that art stop. So
Mimoka.
that would be
Yeah,
a
and
good
actually, I
venue.
did a work. Yeah, that's a great one for the farmers market, and I'm sure they've been doing their art stop again. I'm sure they'd be happy to have other people, other organizations staff that. I did a workshop with BMOCA, and they've had some turnover in their education and outreach department, but they too are very interested in offering programs with the guild, so we can, again, develop that collaboration. They did some scientific illustration things. They did some bigger kinds of more in-depth connections with people this summer.
Well, and Jane Burke's a textile person, their new director.
Right.
Oh,
Oh,
All right. So, so Jane Patrick has said, she's going to work on FiberFest, and we have all these great ideas. And I can't do them all. So I think, to really make this work is having some people step up and say they'll help on certain things or be responsible for an aspect of it. I was kind of, these, like I said, you guys are all familiar faces and have all been somehow involved in outreach before. I'm a little disappointed there aren't any unfamiliar faces here. And so trying to figure out how to get a few more people connected, I think would be a good thing. But you don't have to say right this second, but if you would follow up with me and send an email and say something you'd be happy to do, or write it in the chat there.
okay. Kathy, I have a commitment at 10:30.
Yeah, I want to end by
Me too.
10:30. So.
Okay, but I have done, and I'd be interested in looking at the looms and maybe putting new warps on the looms.
Great, that I think would.
You might get help from the Shack staff because they felt like the looms they were embarrassed at the state of our equipment. Just saying.
Yeah.
Well,
They were really appalled. And so, I mean, maybe that's a strong word, but they may be willing to work with you on fixing and updating so that things are really in good condition.
Yeah, I think things that sat in there since before the pandemic.
yes.
They
Yeah.
weren't good before.
You were
either.
speaking of Mackenzie and
Sienna.
Sienna, and they brought their own equipment as well, which was just beautiful too. So
Well, I know when I was doing outreach, they always encouraged me to use the yarns that were available in the big bins that were in the storage area. And those weren't necessarily good yarns for weaving. But I've got quite a stash here of weaving yarns, and I could certainly use some of my stash to put things on the looms.
So I
and
went through.
I will say though that I am up to here until the end of the year, but I could certainly get into this in January and February.
That timing is fine. I went through all the boxes this summer and tossed a lot of stuff. It's all organized now by fiber type. There's
Mhm.
probably not a whole lot of warp yarn
Right.
in there, but there's, I think, a lot of stuff that would be decent.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's,
Well,
Well,
and
like I said, I've got lots of warp yarns.
and we can, I
And
think
we
when we
have a
get
new-
donations, before we sell it all, we can, if outreach can kind of have first crack at what would be
Yep.
nice to have for outreach, we could do that too.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
So Kathy, maybe could you send us the PowerPoint and maybe get the newsletter to post a link to it?
Sure,
Or
absolutely.
something so that might, bring more people in who were interested but couldn't come. It's kind of a bad time. People are traveling.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And then maybe we could think about what things we would be best at.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I had asked, the beat deadline was last week. I had asked for an extension so I could put something in
Oh, great.
after we had this meeting so that,
Also,
Do we-
younger,
younger
Joanne?
people can't necessarily meet at this time of day. So that's the other
Yeah.
thing I want to talk about, because I don't want to just meet once and then disappear. So I had a thing at the end of my PowerPoint on, do we want to meet monthly, and what is neat? I know Zoom makes it easy, but I'd love to have some in-person meetings. I mean, this is all about connections, and if we could do, at least once every 6 months or something, an in-person meeting. I think ideas just kind of roll differently in those settings.
All right, how about we meet every month and then take your suggestion of twice a year getting together?
Okay, and why don't,
Exactly. Communications is the utmost, and just even seeing that email this on Friday was perfect. I thought, oh yeah, this will keep everything going, because we'll communicate and then other people will communicate.
yeah, and so I think being able to, like Dean said, post the PowerPoint, let people who didn't come to the meeting see that. I'll consolidate the comments people have made and put those in there too. And so if you have thoughts on when you think is a good time to meet, send me an email. Right now, the email is outreach at Handweavers of Boulder. We have set up a new email that's community engagement at Handweavers Guild. I haven't got that set up yet, and one will forward into the other, but just use outreach for now. Yes, CU does have a knitting club.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good.
And then I think there's a lot of connections. I mean, think Atlas is doing, I can't remember the name of their lab of
Unstable lab.
Unstable, yeah. And I had joined their BTU, their blow things up lab a while, which was their makerspace that you could go into and do whatever you wanted. So I think.
I'm connected to them.
Who just said I'm connected to them?
Jane Patrick.
Okay. Yeah. And now, those are young people. And so again, we can say we don't think 20 somethings have time, but I think really reaching out to some of these communities and asking them what they want, what they need, when they need it is something we have to do.
And when I was in Chicago, there were several high schools that had knitting or crochet or whatever clubs. And my charity group worked with them.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. And we got like young people that my medical school had a knitting club, and they made little squares and I sewed them together. But good stuff.
Yeah, New Vista High School has a Wednesday afternoon.
Mhm.
They either go out and do community service or they do a 6-week long concentrated programs. I taught knitting there, I don't know, like 20 years ago or something, but that's something we can reach out to them and offer. They do a resource fair every fall, so we could be at that and see what
Cool.
people would like to, what high school students would like to do. So I think, great ideas all around. And then, the hard part is going from the great ideas to the making them happen, which is going to take a lot of legwork and behind the scenes things. So please, please, please let me know which of those you'd like to work on. Any parting thoughts?
Thank you.
All right,
right,
thank you all for coming. Great ideas, like I said, and I think the energy is here. We can make things happen.
It's kind of like a mini board meeting, though. You're right. We need to get more people. Yep. Okay, bye, everybody.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Kathy.
Bye.
All right.